Hi, this is Kevin, and this is the tutorial for adding pagination to the EZU project. Okay, so in a previous assignment, when we were doing migrations, we used two data migrations to add more instructors and more students to the database. Okay, so I just want you to make sure that your database is in the proper state after that. So we're looking at our project right here in PyCharm, and you can see that I've got my last two migrations. One was the load instructor test data, and the other one was load student test data. Okay, so let's start up the manage.py task. Okay, and ask it to show migrations. Okay, and it does. And you can see that all of those are currently applied. Okay, and that looks good. And let's just prove that we can unapply them and reapply them. So if we wanted to unapply 4 and 5, we would go back to 3. So we would type in migrate course info 0003, and it says it's backing out 4 and 5. Okay, so while we're here, let's just go take a look and make sure that the data really got backed out. So we're going to do a run server. And if we go to the instructors, just the short list, we don't have any of the extras. And if we go to the students, again, just the short list, we don't have the extras. Very good. So let's close out and stop the server. Okay, and let's do show migrations again. And we can see that 4 and 5 are not applied. So we're going to want to apply them. So we're going to type in migrate course info 0005. So we're going to go all the way to 5. And it tells us that it has applied migration 4 and migration 5. You know, the numbers could be different for yours. And let's do a run server again. Okay. And let's just look at the instructors. Yeah, we have all the extra instructors. No pagination though, just all one big instructor list page. And then the students, same deal. So we have the new 125 students here, but no pagination. All right, that's just where we want to be. So let's close this and get to work on the coding. Okay, so I'm going to stop the development server and give us some room here so we can see. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to think about this in its various parts. So what are the parts of the instructor list? Well, there's an entry in urls.py. There's a class for the instructor list in views.py, right? And then there's a template. Okay. Now it turns out we're not changing urls.py. Okay, and if we'll just take a peek at urls.py, Okay, and we have instructor list right up here. Okay, and one of the things I want to point out, I'll show you the code when we get a little bit farther into it. When we change the code for instructor list, okay, we are going to actually change the URL string that gets sent in when we click on a link for instructor list, because it's going to have a keyword parameter that goes on the end of the URL string that says page equals and then the number of the page that we want. Okay? But we don't have to change this, because you have to remember that this string is used as a regular expression. Okay? And this will match, okay? This is going to match it even if after the slash we have a question mark, page equal, say 2. Okay, this is still going to match, because it's kind of a no, it's not a greedy match. It's just going to match. Okay, so no changes here. All right. What about views.py? Yes, we are going to change that. So let's look at the view code for instructor list. We're only implementing the get. Okay. And it's not too surprising. Okay. It's a pretty standard list view. Okay, so let's put that into a comment until we're absolutely done with it. All right. And as part of our downloads, our starter files, okay, we should have a file called code snippet instructor list CBV for class-based view at .py. So I'm going to open that up. Okay. I'm going to open this up with Sublime Text. Just open it up with the text editor. And here we go. Okay, so this is the code that we're going to use to replace the view. Okay, so I'm just going to do select all and copy from that. And then I'm going to paste it right where the view code should be, right here. All right. Wow, that's a lot of code. Okay, and we're going to have to do some work to get it ready to go, and we're going to have to read through it and understand it. Okay, so first we have some imports. I'm just going to hover over this Paginator, and it offers me an import from django.core.paginator.paginator. So I'm going to do that import. And then page not an integer. There's an import for that. I'm going to take that. And then empty page, same thing. Going to take the import for that. Okay, so these are all things that are a part of the pagination feature of Django. Okay. All right. So we begin by setting some variables that are going to be used to configure the code below. So page kwarg stands for keyword argument, page. Okay, how's that going to be used? Well, this code is going to be used to create and recognize the little part that goes on the end of the URL that gives what's going to be added on is question mark, and then this string, P-A-G-E, and then equal, and then the number of the page that we want. And so page is just a character string that's going to be used to build that. And then we have paginate by 25. So this gives us 25 instructors per page. And then we have the name of the template, course info instructor list.html. Okay, so that's all stuff that's going to be used in the code that we have below. Okay, so this is a get. You'll remember the gets are called in order to service a GET request coming in from the browser, okay? And you'll remember that GET requests typically happen when you click on a link, okay? And that's what's going to be happening. We're going to have some links on our page, and we're going to click on them, all right? So what do? Well, first, we retrieve all the instructors by calling objects all on the instructor model class. Now we create a paginator. What's a paginator? Well, it turns out that a very good way to paginate a particular page is to paginate the data source. Okay, I think the natural thing to think of is, okay, I'm going to be getting all the data and I have to find a way to filter out to just get what I want. Instead of that, what the Django people did is this. Let's take the query set that we got back up here, and let's create another class that is a subclass of query set called Paginator. So it does everything that a query set does, plus it's got pagination features as well. And so what we do is that we're wrapping this query set in a paginator. Okay, so it has, paginators have all the query set data and behavior plus additional things that paginators do. Okay, so to create a paginator, we pass it a query set. That's what's in instructors. A query set has all the instructors. And we pass it the number of items that we want on a page. That's that self-paginate by. Okay? When we create variables up here, they're instance variables. That's why we refer to this thing as self.paginate by. Okay? And what we get back is a paginator. Okay? Now, how do we get the page number? Okay. Well, we call get from the request. Okay. So the request object that was passed in when we came into the get method, it has a method called get.get. Okay, and we tell it that we want the keyword argument. Okay, so we pass it page.quarg, and page.quarg, you remember, says page, and it says, oh, we want the value that's been passed through in the URL, tacked onto the URL, that says page equal and some integer value, and we're going to put this into page number. Okay, so we're hoping this is all going to work. Okay, but there's some things that can go wrong, and we put it into a try except block. Okay, so we try to use the paginator to get this page, okay, and it would pass us back a page, right? So we try to do that. Here are the exceptions that we're going to catch. Page not an integer. Okay, how could that happen? Well, that could happen if we didn't get in a page number on the end of the URL. So if we just had a plain old link that said we wanted instructor list, okay, then we would get back page not an integer. And now that's the kind of link that we have in our navigation links. It doesn't have a page number on it. It's just going to say instructor list, right? So that's going to bring up a page not an integer. So we're just going to assume it's 1. Okay? So if we get a link that doesn't include that question mark page equal some integer, we'll just use a 1. Empty page. Okay? So I forget what empty page is. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna stop here to make sure I said the right thing about empty page. Hang on. Yes. So here's what I found. So the exceptions from the paginator are page not an integer. So if we don't have a valid value, we're going to get that. Empty page happens when you request a page, but it's not supported by the data. So you ask for page 25. It would be a proper page, but you don't have 25 pages worth of data. Okay, so those are the two cases that we want to catch. The first one, I think we should expect to have, because we are going to have links that we click on that are not going to have a question mark page equal something at the end of the URL. Okay, but this one, empty page, we'd have to really mess things up to actually cause that to happen. But we're being careful. So if it's page not an integer, we're going to send them to page 1. If it's an empty page, we're going to send them to the last page. Okay, so let's say that they asked for page 25, but it turns out we only have 6. Well, this is going to figure out that we only have 6 and it's going to send them to 6. How do we do that? Well, we use, so we call the page method on the Paginator object, and we pass it Paginator num pages, right? So let's look at this. So what we try is we try to get the number that they asked for. If they didn't ask for something properly, then we get them the first page. If they ask for a page that we don't have, we'll give them the last page. Okay? Now, what else do we have to do? Well, we have to make some decisions about how we're going to show the links on the page, okay? Because we're in the view, right? And because the Django view is part of what in classic model view controller architecture called MVC, okay? The C, the controller, it's the one that does all the controlling and heavy lifting. How's that implemented in Django? Well, it's a combination of urls.py and views.py. So any decisions about what's going to be done on the page except basic formatting things, are going to be made in the view. Okay? So, one of the decisions is, are we going to have a link for the previous page? Or are we going to have a link for the next page? Okay? Well, this is how we do it. Okay? So, we can call the page and we can ask if it has a previous. Okay, that's one of the methods of a page. Okay, if it has a previous, then we're going to format the URL. Okay, so we're going to put on a question mark. This PKW is going to say page, and this is going to say equal, and the N tag is going to give us the number of the page. Okay, so either we're going to put together a link, okay, that has the data there for the previous page, or we're going to store a none. Now, in this context, none is going to mean we're not going to have a link. Okay? And then has next, we figure out if the page has next by calling the has next method of the page object. Okay? And if it has one, we format the URL, else we pass none. Okay, so now we've made all the decisions. Now we just have to collect up all that information and put it into the context object. So we're passing is paginated, okay, and how do we get that information? Well, we call the has other pages method of the page object, so we're going to get a true or false, okay. The next page URL, you'll remember it's either going to have a URL in it or none if we don't have a next page. We have to pass the paginator. The previous page URL is populated the same way as the next page URL. And of course, we need to pass the instructor list, and it's, the variable name here is page. Okay, and then we just call render. All right, are we ready to go? Well, we're not totally ready to go, but I just want to test this a second and show you a feature. Okay, now, what were we, if you look at the last version of the code that we had, we were passing in the context instructor list, and we were passing all of the instructor objects. Okay, now we're still passing instructor list, but just for our page. Okay, now if we don't go change our template, will it still do something reasonable? It turns out that it will. So let's just open up manage.py again and run the server. Okay. All right. And it came up on the other monitor. Okay, so let's go to instructors. And what's interesting here is that we don't have any pagination linking or any of that kind of stuff down the bottom because we haven't changed the template. But it's still expecting to get an instructor list, okay? And it's just shorter than it used to be because we're looking at page 1 of the instructor list, okay? So if we want to get the proper, links on the bottom of the page, well then we're going to have to go change the template, okay? So I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to go get the template, and I'll be right back. Okay, I did that. So let's take a look at this. So instructorlist.html is also another one of your starter files. Okay, instead of making you type all this in, I'm allowing you to copy this one as well. So I'm just going to go over to where I downloaded the starter files, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into the templates under course info. Go to templates, course info, paste, and say OK. And do I want to overwrite? Yes, I want to overwrite, and it opens it up. And let's just turn this off for now so we can see more code. Okay, so what have we added? Well, we just added the section at the bottom. Okay, the stuff above this is all the same. This block of code that I've highlighted is what we added on the bottom. Okay, so the beauty of this is that all of the decisions about how we're going to paginate this current page that we're on have been made in the view. Okay, and enough we have populated enough variables and placed them into the context that the template can see all the decisions that have been made. Okay, so first of all, if this is not paginated, okay, which means it's got it doesn't have multiple pages. So let's say that we only have 6 or 7 instructors in the database. Well, is paginated is going to be false, okay? Is paginated is only going to be true if there's a page 2 or a page 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, okay? So if it's not paginated, we don't put out this part of the page at all. That's pretty neat. If it is, then we're going to have a group of unordered links. Okay. Now, these unordered links can be made prettier by CSS, which we're going to be coming to soon. Okay. So there's potentially a link for the previous page. There's the link for the page that we're on, and then there's I'm sorry, it's not a link. It's just information about the page that we're on, and then potentially there's a link for the next page. Okay, so let's look at the code for the previous one. So we ask if previous page URL. Now you'll remember that if we didn't have a previous page, we populated this with the value none. Okay, so if the value is none, this if is going to be false. Okay, so it's only if the value has a URL in it that we're going to create the URL. We've passed, and we're going to create the link, and we're going to take the value of the href attribute is going to come out of the variable previous page URL, which we built the URL in the view. Okay. Now the next thing is we say page, and we call the number. We use the number field of the instructor list object. Okay, that's how we get the number of the page that we're on. So page number of, and then how we get the total number of pages is that we use the num pages field of the Paginator object. Okay, so that'll say like page 1 of 6. Okay, and then the very last thing that we do is if in fact we have a link for a next page, then we format that. Okay, so that should do it. Let's fire up the development server again. Okay, and do a run server here. Okay, and let's go to instructors. And you remember we had a page with 25 on it, but we didn't have the links down here. So we don't have a link for a previous page because we're on page 1. Okay, so we don't get anything there. The page information about the current page is not a link. It just says page 1 of 6. And then we have a link for next. We click on that. We go to 2 of 6. You see, now we have a previous. We click on previous, we go back to 1 of 6. And we can click on the next all the way out to page 6. It's 4, 5, page 6. Okay, so we have 25 per page. Okay, so that's 5 pages with the instructors that we added from the data migration. And then the leftovers are the real data that we had in the system before we brought in the extra test instructors that came from the migration. Okay, this looks pretty good. This is just what we want. Okay, and look what's happening up on the URL. If we go up and click here, you can see that what we got on the end of the URL is this parameter that says which page we want. Okay, so we have here page equal 6. Okay, so that's how it knew. It still matched the same path in urls.py though. That's what's kind of tricky but fun. Okay, what happens if we go and we click on just a navigation link for instructors? Okay, well, we went to the right page, but let's look at what it says up here. See, it doesn't have a page. Okay, will this work? Yeah, it will work because you'll remember we had in the code within the view that if we didn't get a proper integer here, we'd go to page 1. Well, that's why we went to page 1. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, well, that works just fine. Now, is that enough to test it? Well, not quite, okay? We want to make sure that we don't see this pagination part of the page if we don't have the data to support it, if we don't have a page 2. How could we test that? Well, because we've added the test data as part of a migration, now we're able to back it out. So let's close this. All right. Stop the development server. Okay. Now let's do show migrations. Okay. You can see that we're all the way down through. We've loaded the instructor test data and the student test data. Let's go back to migration 3. So we're going to put in migrate course info 0003. Okay, and now it unapplied them. And then let's run the development server again with a run server. And let's go back and see what happens when we go to the instructors page. And there it is. So we have the original group of instructors, which is not enough to create a page 2. And look, we have no pagination links or anything down here. Okay, good. All right, so I'm just going to close that and stop this, and I'm going to reapply the migrations. So show migrations, just see we're only applied through number 3. We're going to say migrate course info 0005, and it's going to apply them. Now we've got all the data in here. Okay, so we made the changes. We did the testing. What's left to do? Well, we've done the part of this that we're going to do together, instructor lists. Now, what I want you to do is to work on your own, okay, and clone the changes that we did to instructor, apply that same code to student list. And I just want to go back, I want to go back to views and make sure that we didn't, do we have a view? Yeah, we never want to leave commented out code. It's okay to leave it there while you're making changes, just to keep your confidence up. Oh, okay, but now that we have a proper view, we're going to do that. And one of the things that I try to do is, if I forget to take the comment out, and I've already tested, I realize I have to take out the commented code. I'll take it out. I'll run a quick test just to make sure that I haven't broken anything by the changes I made when I took out the comment. If I took it out the right way, I haven't broken anything. If I accidentally took out some extra code, maybe something's broken. Okay, so I'm going to click off the line to make sure we get a save. And I'm going to start the development server again. Bring it up. Go to instructors. And there we go. There's the links again. Everything seems to be working fine. Okay. So what's the code that you are going to clone? Okay. No changes to urls.py, right? The code that we put into the instructor list view, okay, that's the code that you're going to clone and use in the student list view. And then the code that we brought in for instructor list template, and here's instructor list template, okay. The code that you want to copy and bring over is going to be from this is paginated on down. So you're going to want to add this code to the student list template. And of course, like any cloning that you're going to do, you're going to make sure when you make these changes that you look for things that were specific to instructor and change them over to student, like that. Okay? All right. You're on your own. I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.